All right, so you gotta understand, Doc. I kind of just want to fuck with no consequences.
Yeah.
So do you get where I'm coming from? You feel what I'm saying?
But I never even really thought about this much, to be honest, until now I have my son starting to have sex regularly. So it's I'm more interested in it now because it's like you got to wear a condom, you got to blah blah blah, and then my wife was having this conversation with him, and she was like, some girls are gonna be trying to get pregnant, so you need to really be extra careful. And then Owen was sitting with it, he goes, well, can I just get a vasectomy? And then when I get married, turn it around or whatever. And I thought that was genius, first of all, for a 17-year-old to think that. But they won't do it.
Yeah. You won't do it till like 25, right?
I thought it was like 30.
What?
I thought it was 30. I mean, I might be wrong.
I thought you had to be at least 25 before they do any kind of...
You can't rent a car or get a vasectomy until you're 25?
No vasectomy, no tube tying, no nothing.
Really?
I thought. I could be wrong.
That sounds right.
No, that sounds like fucking exactly is wrong. Like you're as a young person, you can't...
I don't think you can.
In general,
Are you looking it up?
yeah. In general, anyone can choose to have a vasectomy after turning 18 years old in any
Okay.
jurisdiction in the United States. But there may be obstacles that someone faces when they choose to have a vasectomy when they're in certain age groups.
I guess they have an expertise and that they have opinions on that for a reason. Because like
Right.
the urologist, when I asked her, was very firm. Like I would never perform it on somebody that young.
So
Like, what if you talked to him and he had a good reason? She's like, no.
All right, so you gotta understand, Doc. I kind of just want to fuck with no consequences.
Yeah.
So do you get where I'm coming from? You feel what I'm saying?
I didn't even think about it. Like, I give my son way more credit than that. I'm
just
like, my
kinda
son
wanna-
is thoughtful and he's caring about women.
I thought that was the idea from the get-go.
I just kind of want to bang, you know?
It's funny. I do a thing now. Sometimes I talk about where I found a condom wrapper in Owen's like laundry in his pants. So I brought him the wrapper, and I was like, dude, don't leave this in your thing. Your mom's gonna whatever, you know. And then I was like, so are you having sex? And he said, no. I'm like, what are you practicing? And he was like, yeah. And so people laugh at that. And then my buddy Stuart said, they're laughing because they're laughing at you because they know he's lying. And it never occurred to me.
Trying it on for size.
It never occurred to me that was the case. So I literally after that I was like, so I called him and I was like, dude, am I an idiot? Were you just saying that? And he was like, no, I was, I hadn't had one on before, so I wanted to make sure I could learn how to put it on. I was like, ugh, so like I say, I give it more credit than I think people.
I mean, I definitely
should.
did that as a kid.
Huh?
I definitely did that as a kid.
Yeah, practice?
Practice putting on condoms, yeah.
Yeah.
I never did that.
You never did that? Yeah, that's why you have four. That's why you had 4 kids by the time you were 17. Wow. So would you use, if there was a male contraceptive, would you use one now?
I would think about it. I would definitely think about using
it. So if you were going to steer this guy to invent some version, what would you want?
You know how they have like Flintstone gummies? I think it's got to be something like tasty and chewy that people want to like.
They want to take?
I don't think dudes are going to be responsible enough to have like a little tube and you take it out Monday and eat it. I don't think it needs to be like a snack.
Right.
So you'd be like, ooh.
Like Cool Ranch flavored.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Spicy nacho, whatever. Barbecue, whatever it is.
All right, well, they're not going to have that.
Put it in a stick of cheese or something, like
And-
a dog.
And what side effects would you be willing to, what level of side effects would you be willing to put up with?
That's a good question. I guess maybe like acne.
That kind of works as a contraceptive also, depending on how much you get.
Yeah. And what's the what's the success rate? Cause you ever see a video where What's that thing?
IUD, the baby comes out.
Yeah,
ripping it.
holding the IUD.
Get the
What?
fuck outta
That's
here.
you've never
Get
seen
the
that?
fuck
There's a
outta
picture of
here.
that. So I'm like, do I really want to gamble with my
That
cum?
can't be real. That can't be real. Baby just comes out like
He's holding.
Fuck you.
It's not enough.
That's the new king.
It's like Highlander or something.
It really is. What was your baby's first words? Fuck you when he came out of the womb. Holding the thing.
in your face.
Wow.
He broke it like a wishbone, make a wish.
It does kind of look like it. It's got the little two things.
There's no way that's real. Is that real?
I
I
saw
don't
the
know how
picture.
real
I don't know.
it
I
is.
didn't.
I see the
I didn't do a
picture
deep dive to
and
confirm it.
I don't know. It could be Photoshop. Who knows?
Yeah.
Has to be.
But that's what got it on your radar?
Yeah, I was like, whoa. I'm like, man, sometimes.
The Catholic Church posted it. Like, see, it doesn't work.
I want to see a where are they now on that kid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like the Nirvana baby. Now I want to know what happens to this baby, the IUD fucking
Fucking
king
IUD
baby.
kid, baby.
So
That's our next president.
have you always been careful? Like starting from the jump when you started?
Yeah. Pretty paranoid. Yeah.
What made you so? Would your parents just harp on you, don't get her pregnant, don't get her, or what made you think?
When I was a kid, one time I think, I don't know. I told my mom, I was like, man, it's burning when I pee. I'm like a little kid. And she's thinking, oh, maybe he's got an STD or something. You take him to the hospital. I'm a little kid. I don't know why she thought that.
Right.
I'm like really young. But then, she's just hyper aware. So she shows me like all these diseases on the computer. Like, this could happen. You start having unprotected sex. I'm like in elementary school. So ever since then, and just I always do when you're a kid, like people would say like a common joke would be like, don't have kids. Don't have kids. Don't ever fuck up everything. So
That's not a joke, right?
Yeah, I still say that.
That's just something everybody. It should be like an affirmation on people's mirrors.
I used to tell my friends when we'd leave each other, I'd be like, all right, man, I love you. Now it's like, all right, don't have kids. So that myth was busted. The baby's mother, Lucy Helene, never said her child was born holding the IUD in his hand. Rather, she told First Coast News that doctors had known the IUD had remained in her uterus throughout her pregnancy, but were unable to locate it. After it was found and removed during her C-section, it was placed in the hand on her son as sort of tongue-in-cheek nod to conceiving while having an IUD and while friends snapped the viral
It's like holding a trout or something.
Yeah.
That is
But it is a funny picture.
That's a
Okay.
funny ass pic.
Yeah.
Sounds like your mom was just really confident in you. She thought you were just really cool.
Yeah,
Just a
she
cool
was
kid.
like,
You're
man,
going,
this kid is handsome. He's gonna be
Yeah,
fucking everybody.
She did not trust them hoes.
Yeah.
So
Awesome, Tom. Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you. So I'm interested in. I have a son. He's 17, right? So he's just recently started needing contraceptions.
That
And,
usually is people's entree into thinking about male birth control.
right. And I can't think of how many methods there actually are, but anyway, so we've had this discussion with him and around in our little room here, and started seeing some of your posts on Instagram, and I didn't even know there was anybody out there really working on it. So I'm very excited to have you explain like how you got into this and what brought you to it and
Sure.
how that's going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you need both. You need one hand to count the number of male methods of birth control in existence, and you need one hand to count the number of people working in my organization. So there are currently two methods of male birth control: condoms and vasectomy. The only reversible method being condoms, obviously. And, vasectomy, you see a lot of information out there, a lot of misinformation, unfortunately, that people think it's easily reversed. It's not. It's a method that's intended to be a permanent form of sterilization, contraception through sterilization. And condoms, you see a lot of misinformation there too, where some people, including some of my nephews, unfortunately believe that they're 99% effective, when in reality, in real use statistics, it's about more than 1 out of every 10 times a person uses a condom, they're at the risk of causing an unintended pregnancy, because the failure rate's about 13% for condoms.
Oh wow! So mostly it's working on the level people think it's working on because of a combination of probably it wasn't the right time. You know what I mean? So, but that's a
Yeah.
pretty big number.
It's a huge number. So you see, and it's the semantics is interesting, because it's like, oh, in perfect use rates, it's 99% effective, and that's if you put the condom on properly, there's nothing wrong with the material, all of that. Then yes, it's super effective. But the real use failure rate's more like 13%, 13%. So quite risky if you're relying only on condoms. Yes. So and for me personally, I'm probably a lot like you all, in that I never really thought about birth control methods for me. I mean, I'm a heterosexual male, and my encounters in the past were really limited to asking my female partners, are you good? Are we good? You using something? Do I need to wear a condom? And
Right.
if I had to wear one, I wore one. If I didn't, I was pleasantly, I was pleased by that. But
so how are women not screaming for more male birth control? And like you said, there's a number on one hand of the people that are working on this with you. How many of them are women?
Let's see. Our executive director is a woman, and then we have one part-time employee who is female as well, and then there's 3 guys. So there's 5 of us total. We focus on non-hormonal reversible methods of male contraception, and we are a nonprofit that is based in Durham, North Carolina, and we are the second largest funder of non-hormonal reversible male contraceptive research and development in the United States, second only to the federal government. And that sounds fantastic, but in reality, we put about $2 million a year into labs researching new methods, which.
What do you mean by non-hormonal, by the way? What does that really mean?
So So hormonal methods of contraception, they impact the endocrine system. So it's more of a systemic intervention, which is super fraught, because if you do anything systemically, you're going to have side effects. And the reason why we focus on non-hormonal is twofold. One, there's already a lot of funding on the hormonal side. So I'm sure you've probably heard about a gel that's in human clinical trials now that you rub on your shoulder. And it's proven to be very effective.
Really? I've never heard of that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can send you some information about that. It's some of our colleagues out in the West Coast. It's a combination of nesterone and progesterone. It's a gel that you have to rub on your shoulder every day, and after a few weeks of use, it causes reversible infertility in men.
Any side effects to that?
They've not seen many side effects at all. There's been very minimal ones, which is fantastic, because what you see and what we kind of advocate for is one, taking a step back and needing to reframe how we define risk with respect to pregnancy. So, if you think about medicine, it's the foundation is the Hippocratic Oath: first, do no harm. Right. And that's fantastic, because you obviously, any sort of medical intervention, you want to only do good things, positive things. But with that narrow definition, when you look at pregnancy prevention, that is extremely limiting in terms of the side effect profiles that are acceptable for men. Because men cannot carry a baby, sperm producers, and men cannot physically carry a child, they do not face any physical risk from a pregnancy. Therefore, when you see a lot of the clinical trials that were paused or stopped outright in the past around male birth control methods, it's because any side effect is causing harm to an otherwise healthy system without any physical benefit. So because of that, the side effect profile for male users of birth control is much, much narrower. So if you look at a woman who gets pregnant, pregnancy can cause serious physical risk, including death. Therefore, the side effect profiles for women is much more extreme, much more rigorous. For men, it's any sort of kind of systemic failure is viewed simply as doing harm.
How can you disrupt a biological? I'm not a scientist either, but a biological system that's sort of integrated and interdependent on each other. How do you disrupt that and not affect it? You know what I mean? And not.
Yeah. Absolutely. So if you look at some of the other methods, like for example, there's one called Tryptonide, which is it's a herbal extract that's derived from what's called the thunder god vine in China. And what they noticed was when mice consumed this, they were, mice were being used for other animal tests for other therapeutics. But when they consumed this certain herb, the only thing that changed about them was they became infertile. So people started looking at what is it about this particular compound that causes that infertility. And what they discovered was that it contained this protein it contained an enzyme that disrupted the protein necessary for the development of the sperm head. So as you eat this herb, it actually deforms the sperm's head. It makes it hook shaped, which prevents it from fertilizing an egg. So what we're funding is people looking at these very, very specific, whether it's a protein, enzyme, acid that is necessary for the development of a sperm cell.
And the shoulder one, like why the shoulder, and like all this that, and I don't know, man. It sounds like these sound like they're the good enough ideas that it would be like the funding would be flowing. Like it just, especially now with like cutting off abortion,
yes.
like, and it's not just men that want contraception. It's not, now it's like, obviously there's side effects to all the different things that women have to take in order to, when you can say, are you good, right? Yeah, I'm good except for the bloating and the thing, and and they're changing my chemical balance in my body.
So as you're seeking funding, is there a specific area that you are finding resistance?
There are people working against you.
Are there people working against male birth control that are hindering your ability to raise funds?
If you look at between the years 2018 and 2020, so those 3 years, a total of $253 million was invested, $257 million was invested in the research and development of new contraceptive methods, right? Which sounds like a huge amount of money, but it's a drop in the bucket when you think it takes about $1 billion to bring a new drug to market. So $1 billion to bring the next therapeutic in, and we're only seeing about $80-90 million a year going into contraception R&D. And that's all contraception. That's for all users, male, female, hormonal, non-hormonal.
It just seems like a great business model to, like, this product needs a thing. There's a huge market. It feels like a no-brainer. It is like if I'm a big corporate pharmaceutical company or whatever, like why would I? People are gonna use this more than they would use the vaccine.
Absolutely.
You would think they'd use it more than condoms.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure. Exactly.
And so, what's their resistance to be like?
If you look at the pharmaceutical industry, this is, one of my favorite targets. So, of that $257 million over those 3 years, Big Pharma put in a total of $13 million. So, if you look at the annual salary of a Big Pharma CEO, it's about $25 to $30 million. So they put in less than half of one executive's annual salary over the course of 3 years. And you look at their business model. So unfortunately, a lot of pharmaceutical companies are publicly traded entities, and they look at risk aversion, their risk profile when they invest in new things. So if you're a big pharma executive, you look and say, well, what's already been approved in the contraceptive space is generating billions of dollars of revenue every year. To bring new methods to market, it's going to cost a whole lot of money, and there's risk involved in there, and it's going to hit your bottom line. So if you start saying to your investors, well, we invested $5 billion in this new therapeutic and it didn't work, then suddenly your stock prices drop, your annual salary drops. And so their incentive, if your sole incentive is financial, I can see why you'd be averse to these things.
Oh, okay.
But
you got me thinking now about like how many methods of female birth control there are, and those have to be insanely profitable for them to keep.
Are there specific groups of people that you find are more interested in this outside of like men comedians who get in touch with you about this? I would imagine if you're looking at funding? Has anyone reached out to a professional athlete? I mean, it's a legitimate question.
Yes.
Yeah?
Get Sean Kemp on the phone.
100%.
You go
Tristan
to the
Thompson.
Yes.
I'd say maybe we take a trip during the NBA All-Star game,
And start pitching this thing around.
pitch this thing around, and try to get some funding for you. It might happen a little faster for you.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's Gilbert Arenas, the former, he played for the Wizards
Yeah.
years ago. He recently had an interview and they asked him about it, and he said every single professional athlete I know would be willing to eat these like Skittles. You know, like yes, absolutely.
Have you
And,
thought
he
about
said it
making
wasn't
them
a
as
problem.
Skittles?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's one thing we hear a lot. We actually have invested in what are called multi-purpose technologies, multi-purpose for prevention technologies, where, you know, it's whether it's an injectable that releases contraceptive therapies over time, or there's other things that, you know, could be, imagine it's a pill that cures erectile dysfunction, but also happens to cause temporary infertility. And watch that fly off the
Do you have a time frame for a legitimate option being available to consumers? Is there a date in mind that you see on the horizon that it'll be a legitimate option available to everybody?
Absolutely. So if you think about the hormonal side, they're heading into stage 3 of clinical trials. And so that shoulder gel method, if everything goes well in stage 3 and stage 4, we're talking 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
And on the non-hormonal side, we're looking more, you know, optimistically 5 to 10 years, but it could be more like 10 to 15 years. And that is driven largely by the funding challenge that we talked about earlier, but also, and I think this is something that's really emerged, especially with the COVID vaccine, and something that we message around a lot now too, is people's lack of an understanding of how clinical trials work. You start with about 10 to 15,000 compounds that show some level of effectiveness at very early stage research. By the time, so if you start with 15,000 compounds, that might lead to one drug making it through clinical trials. So you need a lot of shots on goal in order to get one through. And right now,
I had the same problem getting my wife pregnant.
Sure. Well, that's why
A lot of shots on goal and got one through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's what's incredible. You think about the male reproductive system. I mean, every time your heart beats, you create 1,500 new sperm.
Yeah, you're fighting the evolutionary process. That has to be a battle. Life finds a way, right?
Oh, it's huge. Well, and then you look at the difference between what I just said. You know, 1,500 sperm every second of every day. And men do not, you know, and that's from the time we're 12, 13 years old until we're in our 60s, 70s. Now, obviously, reproductive aging is a consideration, and the quality of sperm deteriorates over time. But you compare that to ovulation, you know, 1 or 2 eggs a month, and over the course of 30 years, it's a hell of a lot easier on paper to provide birth control to women versus men. But as I just said in a recent interview,
sounds like way more dangerous.
What you seem, are you just super great at a job that you're doing, or did you come to this because of a passion for it, or what brought you to this?
Yeah.
Unwanted pregnancy?
Well, no, actually, shockingly, knock on wood, I've been able to avoid causing an unintended pregnancy up till now. I have a bit of an interesting background. Mine's more of a confluence of marketing and communications and what's called human-centered design. I spent prior to joining MCI, I spent about 7 years living and working in India, traveling with projects throughout Africa and
That's what made
Southeast
him
Asia.
think of it.
What, being in
It
India?
was too many people in India.
Yeah.
He was like, we got to put a stop to this.
Well, you know, it is, and I appreciate the humor of that. I think it's one of these things where when you spend a lot of time, especially in, you know, lower middle income countries, and you see children having children, and you see what it looks like for, you know, I did a project around severe acute malnutrition in South Sudan. And you're seeing, families of 3, 4, 3, 4, 5 wives, each wife having 5, 6 children, and suddenly a single family unit's about 35 people. And you wonder, to what effect, like how is that, impacting their lives and their ability to do more than just have children and raise children. So, again, looking at things and being in context in which you're seeing the effects of climate change and, lack of meaningful participation in, financial institutions and things like that, you start really looking at what are these kind of through lines. And I think empowering people to do what they want with their family planning goals and to empower people to make those decisions. There's no higher calling, right? Like, so that's, for me, that was my kind of journey. And my mission was just trying to look at, the world is not in the best possible place it could be. And one of the reasons why is that people don't have the resources, whether it be educational resources or even products, to manage their family planning goals in line with their needs and their desires.
And so your skill with communication, you bring that. How do you find male birth control specifically?
Did you seek it out, or did it sort of find you?
Well, what was amazing, one of the last projects I did in India was looking at far future. So the scope of the project was what will the future of contraception look like in 50 years, 100 years? What will the contraception landscape look like? And naively enough, the entree was through the lens of what women will be using. And so we did research in urban, peri-urban, and rural settings throughout India and Kenya. And what we kept hearing from people is, for men and women, well, what about guys? Like, why are you only asking about her methods? What about me? When am I going to get more than a condom? And I think that really, for me, was the first time that I even started thinking about male birth control.
Isn't that weird, where you can live a whole life thinking along a certain way, and you don't even think of a question, and then you hear the question, and you're like,
yeah,
how did I never even consider that? Like, it's so, my thinking has been so framed by my thinking.
But look at this. I mean, you said you have a 17-year-old son. I have nieces, I have nephews similar age, and I always say to my sisters, my siblings, like, imagine you take your son, 5-minute procedure, simple injection, and you can guarantee that they'll graduate college and never cause an unintended pregnancy. Wouldn't you be willing to do that? Wouldn't everybody be willing to do it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we're at in the world. It's why run the risk? So our executive director, Heather, she has a son who just turned 12. And that's what she lives in fear of, is what is she going to do when he's ready to go off to high school and college? Just hand him a pack of condoms and slap him on the back and say, best of luck to you. Like we have
that's our method.
We have the financial wherewithal, the educational, we have the science is there, the funding is there, the demand is there. We just need to connect all those dots.
Yeah, I'm amazed by especially the push to end abortion. Like the number one way to stop abortions is what? Having people have free contraceptions and and education. But but that is where the funding should go then. Because that's the number one.
100%.
If that's what you want to work towards stopping, the number one method is this. But you're working against that too? Fuck you. Sorry, excuse my language.
Well, but think about exactly. Think about the war on education that we've long had in this country, and defunding public education and how the ramifications that has. The number one resource for young people right now and getting information about their reproductive biology and contraception is TikTok. Now, as a communications person, I have to, as a 45-year-old man, I have to figure out how to use TikTok, for God's sakes.
You do. I've been telling them this for 2 weeks now. Like it's television. It's the new way that we're consuming. Like, I don't flip through my channels anymore. I'm an old dude. I'm flipping through TikTok, and then 2 hours later I'm like, that was too much, And you can educate. You can educate people, and you can broaden the discussion. And I think it's just being tapped into now, and it's powerful. I hope you do it.
If you guys did get funding, oh, sorry, I was just saying, if you guys do get funding, would y'all consider, using some of these influencers to get kids kind of on board with the idea of doing that kind of thing, like tapping some of these TikTok stars, like, hey, do a challenge, a male birth control challenge or whatever it would be.
I am, yes, I've been saying for a long time, we're waiting for our Greta Thunberg, right? Like, we need, why isn't reproductive autonomy a social movement?
Yes.
What greater cause is there? So it sits in the dead center of the Venn diagram of all social challenges.
So you got to come up with money for a marketing
yeah.
department. You got to come up with money for a marketing campaign to get everybody motivated, and the research money to develop the products. And then you guys have to figure out between the five of you what the balance is of where you put your time and energy so far.
You know what our marketing budget is? You know what the marketing and advocacy budget for
This Is It? You're on podcast?
It's so low you're saying yes to be on our show? Yes, I get it.
Yeah.
$3,000 a year. That's what we put into marketing. $3,000.
I'm gonna work on
that's
getting.
why I will.
I'm gonna work on getting us a booth at the NBA All-Star Game. I promise.
Yes.
There you go. No, you guys, it's self-deprecating by making fun of your show, but this is critically important. I mean, what you're doing by giving us a platform to talk about what we're doing, it might, we're all about serendipity. This might catalyze one person into thinking differently about male birth control, and that's a win. So that's a worthy investment of my time. Is if we can reach even an audience of one is fantastic. And honestly, look, I've talked to you three. Hopefully, I've been able to kind of catalyze some thinking on your side too, and maybe you go and talk to your friends about this. And hey, you should think about that. So we're in that kind of stage of needing to build up the grassroots movement and get groundswell of support.
I feel bad that you had to spend your whole $3,000 budget on us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I definitely have the feeling of when I'm watching, like when I'm listening to you talk, I definitely have this, like, it makes me want to get up out of my chair a little bit and be like, why is this not? We should be. I'm with you. I feel like you're close to a place where things start snowballing downhill, where it's like, of course we should be putting money into this. Of course we should be putting energy into this, because it's both pro men and pro women. It's
pro-human.
It's pro-human, and it's not divisive in one side or the other. I think women are calling for men to do something about it and to be a part of it. And
100%.
So,
well, I say to people all the time, and I think most of my friends and family think I'm out of my mind at this point, but I say, what we're doing is we're going to change the world, and it may only be 5 of us, and maybe a small, amount of money, but, we will change the world. And like you said, when you think about, yes, it's birth control methods that men can use and but men aren't the only people that will benefit from it. So imagine, again, reproductive autonomy. If you are a woman today, you have to take something to avoid a pregnancy. Otherwise, you're relying on vasectomy or condoms, which are, huge challenges, both of those. But imagine if you could, and I say this to a lot of, women who are critical of the work that we do. I'll say, imagine a world in which you don't have to take something. Your reality right now is, hey, in the United States, 1 out of every 4 women have to get an abortion before the age of 45. 25% of American women. That's unbelievable.
That's a huge number.
You eliminate abortion, and where does that leave us?
Right.
So imagine if you could not have to take anything and still benefit from contraception. That's what men have been, kind of benefiting from for a long time, for better and for worse. And that's the reality we want to create for all people.
I mean, I do like the idea,
that's great, man.
to launch.
I really admire that. It's really, I love that somebody's working on that.
Yeah, I love the idea that you both have to be in agreement. If there are male birth control and female birth control, we're launching a missile. 2 people got to turn a key. It's the same thing. Let's both press the button at the same time.
Exactly.
Making that decision equally solves a lot of problems.
Yeah. When you have so much work to do and so far to go, any step is in the right direction. So we need people to do even what you think is the bare minimum. Donate $1, have a conversation, follow us on social media. it all helps. It's all good.
I'll donate $1 and I'm gonna send Tom and Dejahzh to volunteer.
Perfect.
My current
Get ready
method,
to work.
my current method of contraception is my personality. So that's what I've been going with. It is 100%
I saw
effective.
one, this you may make fun of yourselves, but simply by having these conversations and being willing to have an open mind about this stuff is a necessary first step for everybody, and it's only going to
we're gonna keep up
lead
our
to
hard
good
work.
results.
And we'd like.
If y'all could really do y'all end of it, it would really help.
Yes, we need you guys to pick up the pace over there a little bit. Yeah. And I'd love if you can to come on again with I'd actually like to do this with my son sometime and have him talk to you like from the perspective of a
Absolutely.
17-year-old boy and what he's looking to,
The consumer.
He was like, don't they have a thing where the where they go to the vas deferens and it's like a switch where you can turn it on and turn it off? Like, they do not have that.
Yeah, there was talk about it back in.
They're working on
2015,
it,
16,
though.
Yeah?
Yeah, no, it's called the Andro switch. It's a real thing. People are working on it. It's crazy, but yeah, what can you do?
All right. Well, we appreciate your time.
Awesome.
Thanks, Kevin.
Good luck to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, cheers. Best of luck to all of you.
Yeah, we'll talk
Appreciate
to you soon.
Take care.
Thanks, Doc.
it. Bye now.
Man.